All right, so we continue with our theological lessons today. There's many options of things that I could do. We'll continue with that. One thing I was thinking about last time, and it comes from our last lesson concerning the incomprehensibility of God. Number one, that doesn't mean that we can't comprehend anything about God, but that we just don't speak univocally concerning Him. We speak by means of analogy, and we can come to know something of the cause from the effects, and so on and so forth. We can reason from contingency to a necessary being and all the rest. But one thing that is also certainly true is what it means to be incomprehensible is that at some point we have to come to terms that we're not going to be able to comprehend everything concerning God. And no matter how uncomfortable that may make us feel, or how tempted we might be to try to fit Him into a comprehensible box, which is an error that some people can and have done, we have to settle within ourselves that there are going to be certain things about God that we're just not going to fully understand. And this most certainly seems to be true when it concerns the doctrine of the Trinity. I was speaking concerning the divine simplicity as to, well, how can God be simple? Or what does divine simplicity mean? Perhaps I should answer that question. What does it mean and what it does not mean? And we'll certainly get into that more fully. But I wanted to emphasize this definition that I heard recently from the Council of Florence, all right, that said, indeed, and here's the quote, everything in them is one where there is no opposition of relationship. So, in other words, in God, and perhaps I'll just read this small section from the Catechism of the Catholic Church in relation to this, okay? So the Holy Trinity is one, right? One. We do not confess three gods, but one God in three persons, the consubstantial Trinity. Okay, consubstantial, a single essence, right? The divine persons do not share the one divinity among themselves, but each of them is God whole and entire. Okay, so not partialism, like, the Son is one part of God and like the Father is one part of God, but rather each of them is God whole and entire. All right, so the Father is that which the Son is, the Son that which the Father is, the Father and the Son that which the Holy Spirit is, by nature one God. All right, that comes from the Council of Toledo. In other words, the Fourth Lateran Council taught that each of the persons is that supreme reality, the divine substance, essence, or nature. All right. And also that we affirm that the divine persons are really distinct from one another. God is one, but not solitary, right, is one way of putting it. This language comes from that might be from it doesn't really tell me where that's from. I'll get through this first and then I'll make my comments here. So Father, Son, Holy Spirit are not simply names designating modalities of the divine being, for they are really distinct from one another, meaning that they really do exist. Right? They don't just exist in our mind logically, but they exist really within God. And of course, this language of person that we use is very specific on how we come to think about it. Once again, not to be used univocally of how we would think. We were thinking a subsistent being. We are talking about something of a rational nature, and we're speaking something that is incommunicable when we use the term person or persona or hypothesis. He is not the Father who is the Son, nor is the Son he who is the Father, nor is the Holy Spirit he who is the Father or the Son. This comes from, once again, the Sixth Council of Toledo. They are distinct from one another in their relations of origin. Okay, you can listen to that language. They are distinct from one another in their relations of origin. So it is the Father who generates, the Son is begotten, and the Holy Spirit proceeds. All right. The divine unity is triune. So they are distinct from one another because of their relation to one another. Okay, there's a relation between two things as when it comes to origin. I used the analogy of the act of the divine intellect reflecting upon himself is itself an image of God. And this is the Logos. All right, this is the divine Son. All right. The divine persons are relative to one another. Okay, because it does not divide the divine unity. See, this is the language. There's a divine unity. There's a single essence. And so when we think about God being simple, when we're talking about divine simplicity, what we mean is that God is not composed of parts. Right? So not partialism, okay? Or anything like that. So that is really what is meant by divine simplicity. Okay? We're talking about a single, simple essence. Meaning, simple, meaning there are no parts. There are no parts. So God the Son is not one part of God. And God the Father is not one part of God. All right, so divine simplicity is maintained. We're speaking about relations, the inner divine relations. All right, in relation to the act of the divine intellect and the act of the divine will. All right. In the relational names of the persons, the Father is related to the Son to the Father, and the Holy Spirit to both. While they are called three persons in view of their relations, we believe in one divine nature or substance. So everything in them is one, where there is no opposition of relationship. So everything in God is one, where there is no relative opposition. Because of that unity, the Father is wholly in the Son and wholly in the Holy Spirit. The Son is wholly in the Father, wholly meaning completely, and wholly in the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit is wholly in the Father and wholly in the Son. This is also referred to as by the Greek term parakleresis, the interpenetration and mutual indwelling of the three persons in each other. Okay? Parakleresis. In Latin, it's the circumincession. basically just reflecting on the idea of interpenetration. Right. St. Gregory of Nazianzus, also called the theologian, entrusts this summary of Trinitarian faith to the catechumens of Constantinople. And we'll finish with this quote, and then we'll get to our reading. Above all, guard for me this great deposit of faith for which I live and fight, which I want to take with me as a companion, in which makes me bear all evils and despise all pleasures. I mean the profession of faith in the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I entrust it to you today. By it I am soon going to plunge you into water and raise you up from it. I give it to you as the companion and patron of your whole life. I give you but one divinity and power, existing one in three, and containing the three in a distinct way. Divinity without disparity of substance or nature, without superior degree that raises up or inferior degree that casts down. The infinite co-naturality of three infinities. Each person considering in himself is entirely God, the three considered together. I have not even begun to think of unity when the Trinity bathes me in its splendor. I have not even begun to think of the Trinity when unity grasps me. And that comes from one of his works. Okay. Things to take into consideration when we reflect on what do we mean about the oneness and the threeness. And what is the relationship between the inner divine relations with the doctrine of divine simplicity? Another way of thinking about this is in God there is no potentiality. He is pure actuality. There are no potentials within God that can be actualized. And because of this, God is perfect and simple and composing of no parts that can move and therefore change. There's no movement of potentiality. There's no causality within God that moves him from potential to act, so on and so forth. So divine simplicity basically reflects that reality, okay, that there's one divine essence, and no matter what we can say about it, it still remains a single divine essence. And once again, we just have to settle into that and come to terms with the fact that we're not going to be able to go much farther than that. In the fact that it's not completely satisfying to us should help us to long for more. Because God is by nature incomprehensible doesn't mean there isn't more for us to comprehend about him in the beatific vision, for instance, and from then on to eternity. So it makes sense that there should be a continual longing. There should be a continual, in a sense, an unfulfilled desire for more of God, because there is more of God and we love him, and that love deepens as we want more of him, and so on and so forth. So it draws us to him. We should expect a continual drawing, a continual deepening in our love for him as we come to know him more and more.